I'm Jake.
I'm Tom.
And we're VIMTV, Velocities in Music. Tom,
yes.
Sunny Day in Glasgow. Let's
yes.
review their new album.
Okay.
It's called See When Absent. I think this is their 4th record.
Alright.
And it's also, they're a dream pop band?
Yeah.
I wouldn't call this dream pop.
Really?
I would call this more noise rock.
I can see that. Yeah.
Or noise pop. This is noisy to me.
Yeah,
but,
it definitely is.
But what do you know about a sunny day real estate in Glasgow?
Sunny day.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. It's a sunny day in Glasgow.
I feel a mashup coming on. I don't think that would work very well.
Two totally opposite bands.
Yeah, this is one band we can really say does not sound like Sunny Day Real Estate.
It's one of like 3 bands we've reviewed that does not sound like
yeah, that's right. But I see where the dream pop comparison comes into play, but I don't think it's maybe. I think what you're getting at is maybe it's not quite as applicable in modern terms. I think I could tell some dream pop influence here. Bands like Cocteau Twins, some classic stuff like that from the 80s.
Yeah, I'd say.
But yeah, this, I mean, just with modern production and the kind of sounds people are into now, the dreams tend to turn into nightmares when it comes to that vein of pop. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess a nightmare is technically a dream.
It is. It's just a bad dream.
Pop? Is there nightmare pop?
Let's start that. That sounds awesome.
That sounds badass.
It probably is already a genre.
Let's quit Velocities in music and dedicate our lives to
the sound of nightmare pop. I would love that.
This is a good goal.
So it really, and what I mean by that, I'm just spitballing here, but what I mean by that is I feel like it just takes some of the more dreamy, lighter, and fluttery aspects, and it adds a little bit of grit to it.
Yeah.
And that's definitely what you hear on See When Absent. You know, with the sounds that they're using, there's still a lot of kind of atmospheric, spacey, electronic sounds, but they definitely have that noise aspect. They're definitely a little gritty and distorted at times.
In a band, I would kind of compare this sound to, and I'm just spitballing here, so bear with me. Okay. Battles and Gloss Drop, which we reviewed a few years ago.
I can see that, yeah.
You know, just really not scared to be loud, very much melodic vocals, but also a lot of layers in the instrumentation here. Throughout See When Absent, this record we're talking about here, you hear, you know, it's a female vocalist. She has a very high voice. All music compares her to Kate Bush. I don't see that quite as much. To me, she sounds a lot like the girl from Deerhoof. I think the vocals, in fact, this whole band, this whole ensemble reminds me a lot of Deerhoof at times, which is not a bad thing. I like Deerhoof. So what I hear is a lot of just spastic drums, some really just clangy guitar at times, and a lot of electronic melodies, whether it's synth textures in the background or the bass, or if it's just these fluttering little glitchy electronic melodies, just layer upon layer upon layer. And so if you have all these layers, and then like Jenga blocks, just mash them all together, that's what this sounds like to me. How would you describe this? Is that pretty accurate?
I think that's pretty accurate. I don't think there's too much more to say. I mean, it's a lot about the atmosphere to me.
And dynamics.
Yes.
And dynamics.
Very much so. Because things can really kind of explode, but they can really sound very delicate and washy as well.
Yep.
And in particular, moving from the sound to kind of how they're constructing these things, there's a lot of vocal layering, and they don't always try to make them line up exactly right.
No.
It's more just kind of like almost in a round, you know, where like you'll have some vocals going on over here, you have some vocals going on over here, maybe some in the center, and they're not quite lining up, but they're all just kind of mashing together and working with that swell of instrumentals. I'm not sure if we've mentioned them yet or not, but My Bloody Valentine is another band that you can't help but make a comparison to.
There's certain tracks on this record that definitely just, especially in like the guitar in the background, that just adds this atmospheric effect, and it's super washy. Totally sounds like MBV.
But one thing that they do with the vocals that I also really love is when they all come together. And I mentioned that, you know, spatially they can all be very separated. Maybe they're not being sung at the same time in exactly the same wording. But when you get the harmonies that line up, I find that you have some really beautiful moments. One in particular, track 8, Double Dutch. It's actually a very short song, but I actually found that it was one of my more favorite tracks on the album. I wish that it was longer.
And I agree, that track is one of the better tracks here. One of my personal favorites was the track before that, Never Nothing, It's Alright, It's Okay. I felt like that track actually, it kind of starts off messy, but then there's a breakdown and they bring it all together, and I thought it came together nicely. And I'll just kind of merge into kind of my take on this record, is that these guys, I love the experimentation. These guys are really really trying to make something new and original, which I value greatly. However, whenever you're dealing with bands who are wanting to be experimental and making experimental records, like I would classify See When Absent, you're going to have some inevitable risks. These guys are layering things and mixing sounds together just to be loud and abrasive. And it's very abrasive, it's very loud, and sometimes it works brilliantly, but a lot of the times I think it just sounds like a bunch of noise, which without real purpose. And what I mean by without real purpose is that there's a lot of noise rock acts that we've even reviewed on this channel that it still has purpose. The noise serves a function in the music, and here the whole point is just to make you agitated. And they definitely did that to me. So I guess if that's what they were going for, mission accomplished. But I'm hearing melodies in here. I'm hearing guitar lines that I really like. I'm hearing electronic melodies that I want to follow mentally. And because of all the shit that they're just piling on top of more shit, it just comes off as like they have like a pile of shit and a straw just in like you see like a big orange and you stick a straw in it and drink the orange juice out of it. It's kind of the opposite of that. It's kind of a pile of shit that they've stuck a straw in and they're blowing into it trying to make noise, and it just goes most of the time I feel like that is an accurate metaphor for what I'm hearing, and it's too bad because I think that they're onto something with just the level of just the beating you in the face with that loud beat of the drum and the chaotic vocal swirling and melodies and things like that. And as I said, sometimes it's awesome. Track 2, In Love with Useless, is a great example of when all of this can come together and sound brilliant. I love that entire track. I also really like track 3, Crushin'. I thought that how it starts off soft and then it gets kind of bigger and it has those electronic textures. I really, really like the presentation there. It's just all too often I found myself hating the track, and so it just created a very disjointed listen for me. Now, Tom, we get accused every once in a while of agreeing too much. Yeah. And really, to us, a disagreement of like 5 points is a pretty big disagreement. I don't feel like you guys think that it's that big of a disagreement. Well, we have a treat for you today. Tom, what do you think?
I had
a
very different experience with this album. I loved your blowing into a pile of shit analogy. I didn't quite think. I do see where you're coming from with the sound, where it can sound a little bit overwhelming. I think it just depends on what you're listening for and your reaction to it, obviously. I found that was a little harsh at first, and it was difficult to get into, but I really found myself falling in love just with a lot of the melodies. And I felt like when the vocal melodies just pierced through that mix, it really made it for me. So for me, the only thing keeping this from being an even higher score for me isn't any issues with the sound or anything like that. It's more just some typical track displacement. There are a few tracks I didn't like. I thought that the album started strong with the first few tracks and ended strong with the last few tracks, but there were a few in the middle that I wasn't too keen on, particularly track 5, The Things They Do to Me, track 6, Boys Turn Into Girls, and then you mentioned you really like track 7, Never Nothing, It's Alright, It's
really
Okay. I like that track okay, but it wasn't one of the stronger ones for me. I felt like that for me was just a little bit of a lull, but the rest of the album was pretty strong. So if it wasn't for that, if it was a little more consistent in quality for me, I would like this a lot more. But I really like what these guys are going for. At the same time, too, while I like this while I'm listening to it, I don't feel like it has a whole lot of comeback quality.
I totally agree with that.
That's kind of a big deal for me. That's kind of the difference between like a 70s range and an 80s range album for me, is just whether I feel compelled to come back and listen to it.
Right.
And maybe there are a couple tracks that'll stick with me, but in general, I don't think I'm going to go back to this entire album as a listening experience.
Right.
But I still enjoyed it when I put it on.
And I would still give these guys credit for being experimental, pushing the boundaries. This is definitely something that I'm going to reference when I say, hey, do you like experimental music? Yeah, check this shit out. This is wild and edgy. And we listen to a lot of music, so it's always cool when you hear something that's truly unique and original. So I do give these guys credit for that. Now, my score may not reflect that a little bit. I'm going to go 67.
I'm going to go 76.
Okay, that's 72 from Velocities in Music, if I'm doing the math in my head, which is always susceptible to error. But 72 is a record where we may have a couple issues. Obviously, it's a bit polarizing between Tom and I. I certainly had a more severe reaction to this album than you did. However, we're really curious, what do you guys think? Did you love this album? Did it bother you like it bothered me? Whose side do you fall on? You want us to disagree? We finally did. Leave us a comment. www.velocitiesandmusic.com or youtube.com/velocitiesandmusic in the comments. Also, follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook. Tom or I know if there's any records you'd like to see us review on this channel. And also, he's Tom.
Yeah, I am Tom.
Yeah, and I'm Jake.
He's Jake.
Yeah, and we are Velocities in Music, moving music critique forward.